In January 1946, free from the fear of prosecution, Ishii emerged from hiding. He began to talk to the Americans about his work. He knew the Russians would also be seeking him and his information. They'd captured 12 germ warfare experts in Manchuria. Sure enough, according to this US intelligence document, the Russians did ask the Americans to release Ishii to them for questioning.
The Russians requested that General MacArthur arrange for the handing over of General Ishii to them, but Ishii went to discuss this with MacArthur, stressing that he had no intention of going to Russia. In the office of General MacArthur, there was a man called General Sams, who agreed that he should not go, and said, conversely, that all the information should be handed to the Americans. If he did this, he and all the members of Unit 731 would be considered not guilty of any charge. This was clearly stated, and so Ishii took full responsibility for gathering and handing over all the information to the Americans. This is truly what actually happened.
So the bargain was struck. Yet, as MacArthur prepared to bring other Japanese war criminals to justice, there's evidence that he knew of the human experiments carried out by Ishii's units. In May 1947, MacArthur radioed to the War Department, top secret. Experiments on humans were confirmed tacitly by Ishii. Reluctant statements by Ishii indicated he had superiors who knew and authorized the program. In September 1947, again top secret, the State Department warned MacArthur and the Army and the Navy about the deal. It is recognized, they said, that this government may at a later date be seriously embarrassed. They'd already discussed that independent investigation by the Soviets in the Mukden area may have disclosed evidence that American prisoners of war were used for experimental purposes, and that they lost their lives as a result of the experiments. But MacArthur pressed ahead with the deal. Then, in October 1947, two American scientists, Edwin Hill and Joseph Victor, came to Japan to assess the value of Ishii's work. They interviewed the Unit 731 scientists, Ishii, Kitano, Kasahara and the rest. And the American investigators reported, such information could not be obtained in our own laboratories because of the scruples attached to human experimentation. The trial of Japanese war criminals, begun in Tokyo in May 1946, had already lasted a year. The trial ended in April 1948. It had lasted 2 years. But in the thousands of pages of evidence and depositions, there's not a single mention of Unit 731. In contrast, the Russians brought their Unit 731 criminals to trial and gave them up to 25 years in jail. But the Americans had the information they wanted, and Ishii and his men emerged scot-free. But there was another important consideration. The Emperor had escaped association with Ishii's experimental work on human beings. He never stood trial to answer for the crimes of his nation, not least because the Allies needed him to preserve some stability in a land reeling in defeat. They needed him to introduce a new democratic constitution to a newly elected parliament. There seems little doubt that the Americans and the Japanese protected the Emperor from implication in and possible prosecution over any war crime. Meanwhile, Shiro Ishii was living in Tokyo. Then, in 1948, he suddenly disappeared.
I am told that he gave some lectures, a series of lectures that included human testing of infectious organisms in a special camp in the United States. He went into detail as to the method of injection and the reaction of the prisoners, and he gave some results.
Do you know this, Dr. Sanders?
I got the information from a high-ranking officer on the condition that his name not be mentioned.
You are in no doubt in your own mind that it is true?
I believe it, yes.
The game is you buy a lot for a little, and that's what they did. They gave us a few little prisoners' death to gain a lot of knowledge for their own research programs to make bacterial stuff that they can't even haul through half of the towns of this country.
Our government should have notified us so we could have been on the lookout for any repercussions from the experiments. And I'm very disappointed in our government that they have done this.
I think it's pretty terrible, and I think our government should should fess up and try to even help the few of us that are left.
Today, 40 years on, and as the extent of the horrific work of Unit 731 emerges, these American prisoners are fighting for compensation. They feel let down and angry. They're calling for a full congressional investigation. The US government may be on the threshold of the embarrassment forecast by this intelligence document 40 years ago. The congressman will find that the work of Unit 731 spread across the entire Far Eastern theatre of war. In places as far apart as Nanking and Burma, there are further allegations of human experimentation. As